The stars stretched endlessly as the old ship drifted through hyperspace. The roar of battle was gone now, replaced only by silence and the faint hum of the engines. But inside the cabin, silence felt heavier than any noise. Alien sat curled against the wall, her face buried in her hands. Her body trembled with each sob that broke free. Her sister's last scream still echoed in her ears, replaying over and over like a wound that refused to close. Rethan sat across from her, his hands gripping the useless cracked controls. His shoulders were broad and unyielding, but his eyes burned red, filled with pain he could not show. He wanted to comfort her, to say something, anything, but every word felt hollow against the weight of what they had lost. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Alien lifted her head. Her green eyes were swollen, her voice raw. She didn't have to do that. She didn't have to die. Rathan swallowed hard, his throat dry. She thought it was the only way. Alien shook her head violently. No, it wasn't her choice to make. It should have been mine. She always carried the weight for me. Always. Her voice cracked into a whisper. And I let her go. Rathan leaned forward, his gaze steady, his voice deep and firm. No, Alien. You didn't let her go. She made her choice. For you, for both of us. Don't dishonor her sacrifice by calling it weakness. Tears streamed down Alien's face. But why us? Why do they hate us so much? Why would they force you to choose? Rethan's jaw tightened. He stared out the viewport, watching the stars streak by. Because they fear what they don't understand. They think humans are monsters, reckless, dangerous, wild. And maybe they're right about one thing. He paused, eyes narrowing. We are dangerous, but not because of our strength, because we refuse to bow when the universe tries to break us. Alien stared at him, her trembling slowing. Rathan's voice softened, almost breaking. The Dominion wanted me to choose between you two. They wanted me to prove that love can be divided, that loyalty can be broken. But they don't understand. Humans don't love halfway. We don't abandon family, even if it kills us. A hush filled the cabin. Alien reached out, placing her small hand over his. Her voice was faint, but steady. Then, Seren died knowing she was loved by both of us. Rethan nodded slowly. His chest ached, but in that moment, a sliver of peace settled over them. Weeks later, on a hidden moon far beyond Dominion space, Rathan and Alien lived in quiet exile. The stars above were bright and unbroken, untouched by war. Alien carried her sister's memory with her. Sometimes she swore she could still hear Seren's laugh in the wind. One night, as they sat together by the fire outside their small shelter, Alien spoke softly. They'll call you a monster forever, won't they? Rethan gazed at the flames, then at the endless stars. Maybe, but sometimes, a monster is just a man who refuses to let the innocent die. Alien smiled faintly through her tears. She leaned her head against his shoulder, whispering into the night. She saved us. But you gave us hope. The fire crackled, the stars watched silently, and somewhere in the vast darkness of the galaxy, the name of one human began to spread. Not as a traitor, not as a monster, but as the Death Worlder who defied the impossible choice. The stolen ship shuddered as it broke free of the hangar, engines groaning under the sudden strain. Blue lightning from the Dominion cannon streaked across the sky, exploding dangerously close to the hull. Inside, alarms screamed, panels sparked. The sisters clung to each other, their faces pale with fear. Rethan gritted his teeth, forcing the trembling craft higher into the dark alien sky. "Hold on," he shouted over the noise. "We're not safe yet." But the Dominion warships were already in pursuit. Sleek hunters soared up from the hangar, their engines glowing with deadly blue light. Dozens of them. Their shadows fell over the smaller craft like predators circling prey. Seren stared through the window, her voice trembling. "They'll catch us. The ship is too old. We'll never outrun them." Alien grabbed her sister's hand. "Don't say that. He'll get us out. He always does." But even Alien's voice shook with doubt. Rethan slammed his fist against the controls. "Damn it! Come on!" The ship jerked, metal groaning as sparks rained from the console. Warning lights blinked red across the dashboard. The old vessel couldn't take much more. Outside, the Dominion ships spread into attack formation. Their weapons glowed, targeting the fragile craft. The sky lit up with lines of blue energy locking onto them. In that terrible moment, Seren's eyes filled with resolve. She wiped her tears away and looked at her sister. "Alien, I can save you." Alien froze. "What? No! Don't you dare!" Seren smiled sadly. "One of us has to stay behind. You said it yourself. He always saves us. But he can't save both. Not this time." Rathan turned sharply. "Seren, don't you even think about it!" But before he could stop her, Seren reached into her robe and pulled out the crystal. The same glowing stone she had carried the night the palace burned. The crystal pulsed with raw energy, vibrating, in her hands. Alien's eyes widened in horror. "No! That's suicide!" Seren's voice was steady now, stronger than ever. "It's the only way." She kissed her sister's forehead, then looked at Rathan with a calm, heartbreaking smile. "Take care of her. Promise me." Rathan shook his head violently, his chest burning. "Don't do this. There has to be another way." But Seren didn't wait for permission. She pressed the hatch release. The ship's side door burst open, wind howling inside the cabin. Alien screamed and tried to grab her, but Seren slipped free. With the glowing crystal clutched to her chest, Seren leapt into the open sky. The Dominion warships locked onto her instantly. Their systems mistook her radiant energy for the ship's core. Dozens of missiles fired at once, chasing the light of her falling body. Alien screamed until her voice broke. "Seren!" The sky erupted in a blinding explosion. Fire bloomed across the heavens, shaking the small ship to its bones. The pursuing warships were thrown off course, confusion spreading among them. Inside the cabin, Alien collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. Rathan's knuckles turned white on the controls, his jaw trembling as he whispered into the empty air. "You didn't have to prove love that way." The ship slipped into hyperspace, streaking away into the stars, carrying only 2 souls now, broken and silent. Smoke and sparks filled the alien courtroom. The great pillars trembled as Dominion soldiers poured in from every doorway. Their glowing spears lined the chamber like a forest of lightning. Rathan stood at the center, chest heaving, the broken spear still glowing in his hands. The sisters crouched behind him, clutching each other, their robes stained with dust and tears. The judge's voice boomed, furious and commanding. "Do not let them leave this hall! Kill the human! Kill the traitors!" The soldiers advanced, their boots pounding in rhythm, echoing like drums of war. Rathan's mind raced. He could not fight an army. Not here, not like this. He had to move. "Run with me," he whispered over his shoulder. The sisters hesitated, fear gripping their hearts. But when he looked at them with those burning eyes, they both nodded. He spun the broken spear, slammed it into the ground and shouted with all his strength. "Now!" He surged forward, charging into the wall of soldiers. The first line tried to block him, but his momentum was unstoppable. He smashed one soldier aside, twisted past another, and drove his shoulder into the gates. The giant metal doors burst open. Light and cold wind spilled in. For the first time since the trial began, freedom was in sight. The three of them sprinted through the wide corridors of the Dominion fortress. The halls were lined with statues of old rulers, their stone faces twisted into cruel sneers. Alarms wailed, red lights flashing against the silver walls. Alien stumbled, but Rethan grabbed her arm and pulled her forward. Seren gasped for air, tears streaming down her face, but she refused to let go of her sister's hand. The sound of armored boots thundered behind them. Guards were coming from every side. "There!" Seren cried, pointing toward a distant blast door at the end of the hall. Beyond it, faint rays of blue daylight eked in. "Move!" Rethan shouted, his voice like fire. They burst into the hangar. The vast chamber stretched for miles, filled with sleek Dominion warships, their dark hulls glowing with blue energy lines. Mechanics shouted in panic, scrambling as the intruders ran across the steel floor. Rethan's eyes darted around. He spotted a smaller vessel, half broken and covered in dust. It was old, abandoned, but maybe it still had life. "That one!" he shouted. The sisters nodded, following him toward the forgotten craft. Soldiers poured into the hangar behind them, their spears glowing, their voices shouting war cries. Rethan reached the ship and slammed his hand against the control panel. Sparks burst, the old machine groaning awake. The sisters climbed inside, their hands shaking as they fumbled with the controls. The engines coughed, then roared with sudden life. The ship's lights flickered on, bathing the hangar in a pale glow. But the Dominion soldiers had surrounded them now. Dozens of spears pointed at the ship. Cannons on the hangar walls swiveled into position. Alien's voice broke, trembling with fear. "Rethan, there are too many. We can't make it." He gripped the controls, jaw tight, eyes blazing with defiance. "We're not stopping here. Hold on tight." The ship lifted, rising shakily off the ground. Soldiers fired, energy bolts slamming against the hull. The sisters screamed as sparks rained down inside. Rethan pushed the throttle forward. The ship shot toward the open gates of the hangar, engines screaming like thunder. Behind them, the High Judge's furious voice echoed through the halls. "You cannot escape us, human! We will hunt you across the stars!" But Rethan did not look back. His eyes stayed locked on the horizon, on freedom. The courtroom erupted in chaos. The white glow around Rethan grew brighter, spilling across the walls like firelight. The crowd of aliens staggered back, their chants silenced in shock. The guards lunged at him, but Rethan moved faster than anyone thought possible. He caught the first glowing spear with his bare hands. Sparks burned his skin, but he didn't let go. With a roar, he snapped the weapon in half as if it were nothing more than glass. Gasps filled the chamber. The second guard swung low, trying to pierce his side. Rethan twisted, grabbed the soldier's arm, and hurled him across the floor. The alien's armored body slammed into the wall, leaving cracks in the marble stone. The sisters clung to each other, eyes wide with both terror and awe. They had seen humans bleed and suffer before, but this was different. This was raw, unchained fury. "Stay behind me," Rethan shouted, his voice echoing like thunder. Another pair of guards attacked, their spears glowing like lightning. Rethan ducked, swept one off his feet, and slammed his fist into the other's chest plate. The impact shook the air, and the alien crashed backward, sliding across the floor. The judge slammed his staff into the ground, trying to command order. "Stop him! He is only one man!" But Rethan's eyes burned with something greater than rage. It was survival. It was defiance. It was the will of a human who refused to let innocence be destroyed. He lifted a fallen spear, the weapon buzzing with alien energy, and spun it in his hands like it belonged to him. The glow lit his face, showing the lines of pain and determination. The aliens had always thought humans were fragile, weak outsiders. Now, they were seeing the truth. The High Judge snarled, rising from his throne. "You dare defy the Council? You dare break the sacred trial?" Rethan pointed the spear at him, his voice sharp and steady. I don't care about your trial. I don't care about your laws. No one touches them. Not while I breathe. The sisters stared at him, tears streaming down their faces. Alien whispered, He's fighting for us. Seren held her sister's hand tightly, her heart pounding with both fear and hope. The judge raised his staff again, summoning reinforcements. The great doors of the chamber burst open, and rows of Dominion soldiers stormed in, their heavy boots shaking the ground. Dozens of glowing spears lifted at once, all pointed at the lone human. The crowd roared again, but this time it was not excitement. It was fear. Because they had never seen a human like this before. Rathan planted his feet firmly on the cracked floor. His body shook with exhaustion, but the light inside him kept burning. He held the alien spear high, his muscles tense, his voice carrying across the chamber. "You want war?" he growled. "Then you'll see what a human can do." The walls shook. The lights flickered. Even the soldiers hesitated, unsure if they were facing a man or a storm. Behind him, the sisters whispered the word that would echo for years to come. Deathworlder. The chamber shook with shouts as the guards tightened the circle around Rathan. Their glowing spears hummed with deadly energy. The sisters were forced to their knees again, trembling in fear. The High Judge raised his staff. His cold metallic voice carried across the room. "Human, you have delayed long enough. Choose one to live, or both shall die. You have no other path." The crowd roared, stamping their feet, demanding blood. The air was thick with hatred. Rathan's chest burned. He looked at the sisters. Alien with her glowing green eyes, Seren with her shimmering blue hair. Both were crying, both begging, but not for themselves. "Save her, not me," Alien whispered. Seren shook her head fiercely. "No, let me die. She must live." Their voices tore through him like knives. He wanted to scream. His hands shook. He had fought beasts, storms, and machines, but nothing in his life had ever broken him like this. The judge began to count again. 10. Rathan's breath caught. His eyes darted between them. He could see their lips trembling, their tears shining under the cold light. 9. Alien clutched Seren's hand tightly. "Promise me. You'll live," she whispered. 8. Seren shook her head, sobbing. "I can't live if you're gone." 7. Rathan felt his soul ripping apart. Every second stabbed his heart deeper. 6. He dropped to his knees, his voice breaking. I can't do this. 5. The guards raised their spears higher, ready to strike. 4. The crowd's chanting grew louder, shaking the walls. 3. Rathan clenched his fists. His jaw tightened, his teeth ground against each other. 2. He looked at the sisters, then at the judge. His eyes burned with fury. 1. And then, silence. The judge lowered his staff, ready to give the order. The spears glowed brighter, humming with lethal energy. But Rathan suddenly stood, tall, his voice booming across the chamber. "I will not choose." The crowd gasped. The judge froze. "You want me to pick between them? To let one live and watch the other die?" Rathan's voice thundered. "No. If you kill them, you kill me too." He spread his arms wide, shielding the sisters with his own body. His face was filled with rage and fire. "Because humans don't abandon family." The sisters clung to his back, their cries echoing in the silent chamber. The judge's expression twisted in anger. "Then all 3 of you will die." He lifted his staff high. The guards lunged forward. But at that moment, something awakened deep inside Rathan. The lights in the chamber flickered. The air grew heavy. The energy cuffs on his wrists began to spark again, brighter and hotter. A surge of raw power coursed through him, the same force that once shattered chains. His body glowed faintly with white light, his eyes blazing with fury and pain. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even the guards hesitated, their weapons trembling. And then in a voice that shook the walls, Rethan roared, "No one dies today!" The floor cracked beneath his feet. The impossible choice had just been broken. The explosion of light inside the alien courtroom faded slowly, leaving only smoke and frightened silence. Guards lay scattered across the marble floor. The chains that once held Rethan glowed red before shattering into dust. He looked down at his trembling hands. "What did I just do?" he whispered. The sisters stared at him, eyes wide, their alien skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Before anyone could move, more guards stormed in from the upper gates, shouting in their strange metallic language. Rethan's mind was already far away, back to the day it all began. 2 years earlier. The planet Narel IV had been beautiful then. Golden forests, floating rivers, cities carved into cliffs of shining crystal. Human explorers called it the Singing World, because its air shimmered with sound when the wind blew through the stones. Rethan was part of the first human delegation sent to build peace with the Dominion. He wasn't a soldier then, just an engineer and a dreamer. That's when he met them. The twin sisters, Alien and Seren, both were curious about humanity. They would follow Rethan through the market streets, asking endless questions about Earth, about oceans, rain, music. He remembered their laughter, how Alien loved to mimic human songs, how Seren painted stars on her walls and said, "One day I'll see them for real." They became his family in a world that was not his. But peace never lasts long between worlds. One night, alarms screamed across the capital. Rethan rushed out of the engineering hall to find fire rising from the palace towers. The sky was red. Warships hovered overhead, firing on the city. He sprinted toward the royal sector, heart pounding. The streets were chaos. Dominion soldiers fighting each other, factions breaking apart. He found Alien kneeling beside her wounded father, the High Lord. Seren stood behind her, clutching a small energy cry, Stahl that pulsed with light. "They said humans did this," Seren cried. Rethan shook his head, voice breaking. "No, it's not us. Someone wants to start a war." Before he could explain, a massive explosion tore through the courtyard. A wave of fire threw them all into the air. When Rethan opened his eyes again, the palace was gone. Alien was bleeding but alive. Seren had vanished. He carried Alien through the burning ruins until they escaped into the dark tunnels beneath the city. For days he searched for Seren, but she was nowhere. Then, one morning, Dominion patrols found him and declared him the traitor who destroyed their capital. Now, standing once again in the courtroom of that same Dominion, Rethan finally understood. The war had ended, but the lies had not. The High Council wanted a symbol, a monster to blame. And what better monster than a human who dared to love 2 alien princesses? He looked at the sisters again. Alien's green eyes filled with tears. Seren's blue hair glowed softly under the cold lights. The past had returned to destroy them all. Rethan clenched his fists, whispering to himself, "This time, I won't fail them again." As the guards surrounded him once more, his eyes turned toward the exit, and for the first time, a plan began to form. The sound of heavy metal doors echoed through the grand alien courtroom. Cold blue lights shimmered on the silver walls, and hundreds of alien eyes stared down from the tall balconies. The air was tense, silent, and cruel. In the center of the chamber, a man knelt on the floor, a human named Rathan. His hands were chained with glowing energy cuffs. His face was bruised, his heart still burning with anger and confusion. Two alien sisters stood a few feet away. Both were young and trembling, dressed in white ceremonial robes. Their skin glowed faintly, one soft green, the other pale blue. Their eyes were full of fear. They were looking at Rathan, as if only he could save them. Then the High Judge rose from his seat. His tall, armored body cast a shadow across the floor. His voice boomed through the room. "Human, you are accused of betraying the Dominion, of spreading chaos among our kind. The sentence is death, but—" He paused. "We offer you a choice." Whispers filled the crowd. The judge raised a long metal staff and pointed at the sisters. "Pick one to live. The other will be executed. You have 60 seconds. Rathan froze. "What?" he said softly, his voice echoing. "They're innocent. They did nothing wrong." The judge's voice was cold. "They helped you escape once. They defied our laws. Now you must decide. One lives. One dies." The guards tightened their grip on their glowing spears. The audience began to chant in a deep alien tongue, calling for blood. The sisters fell to their knees, crying. The one with green hair whispered, "Please, save her, not me." The other shook her head. "No, don't choose me. Let her live." Rathan's mind was spinning. His chest felt like it was going to break. He had fought monsters, survived wars, even walked through fire. But this was something worse than death. He looked at them. Two innocent souls caught in a sea. Rule game. His heart screamed to save both, but the chains on his hands reminded him of his helplessness. The judge began the countdown. 30 seconds. Rathan shouted, "No! I won't choose! 20 seconds. Please, stop this madness! 10 seconds. Tears rolled down both sisters' faces. The guards stepped closer. The glowing tips of their weapons lit the air. Rathan looked up at the judge, his eyes full of rage. "You call this justice? You're nothing but monsters." The judge smirked. "Then you accept the consequence." He raised his hand to give the order, and in that frozen moment, something changed. The lights flickered. The air trembled. Rathan's heart began to pound faster, harder. The energy cuffs around his wrist started to spark. Everyone stared as a bright white light began to rise from his body. The guards hesitated. The sisters gasped. The judge took a step back, and Rathan whispered, his voice trembling, "No one dies today." The chamber shook like thunder.